Hey, what's up YouTube? My name is Brett Westwood, and today I'm going to teach you how to create a Stripe checkout for a one-time payment using Next.js version 13. So here's an example of what we're going to create. We're going to create 4 different pricing cards, and these price cards each have a product ID, and the product was created on the Stripe dashboard, and these are all in test mode. So if we do end up clicking one of the buttons, we're going to be redirected to a Stripe checkout pre-built page. So that's what we're building. So we're going to fill out the information real quick and test it out. So this is exactly what we're creating today. So we could just fill out dummy information here. The card information for test mode will be 424242. And as you can see right here, it does say test mode. So no actual money is going to be used for this transaction. So after we have all the information, we're going to click pay. It's going to process the payment, and we're going to get a payment is successful. So then if we go to the Stripe dashboard, we go to test mode, we go to payments, and as you can see right here, this is my timer here, 1:37 a.m. Brett at Gmail, I did, succeeded for a $339 payment. So if you're interested in learning how to actually accept payments on your Next application through Stripe, keep watching this video. And before we get into it, if you can, like the video and also subscribe to my channel for more content related to Next.js, React, Tailwind, anything full stack related. Subscribe to this channel and you won't regret it. So let's get right into the code. So to get started, we are going to create a Next app. So the way we do that is we are going to go inside of our computer's terminal. I am going to go into my directory where I keep all of my projects. So we're going to cd into there. And then I'm going to open up a tab real quick on Google Chrome. And we are just going to go to the beta docs. And I'm going to show you exactly what it says. So Next.js 13.3 is the current version I am using at the time of this video recording. We are going to go to installation. And we're just going to do the automatic installation. So we're going to copy this code here. And I'm going to paste it here. And it's npx create-next-app at latest with the flag of experimental app. And then after this, you have to name your app. So we're going to name this Stripe Checkout. And then we can just do Stripe Checkout Demo. And I spelled it wrong. Let me spell it right real quick. So after we do that, it's going to start asking us a few questions. First question, do we want to use TypeScript? We are just going to say no. ESLint, we'll put no. 13.3 now introduces TailwindCSS as the automatic import when you create the project, which is pretty cool. So we're going to say yes to Tailwind since we are going to use that to style our pricing cards and project here. Would we like to use the source directory? We're going to put no because we're going to use the app directory, which is the beta directory. And the import alias, we're just going to keep as the @ symbol so we could press enter. So now it's going to initialize the project and install all the required dependencies as you can see are listed right there. This should take about 10 to 15 seconds. After this is completely done, we are going to navigate or CD back into our Stripe checkout demo folder, and then we're just going to press code dot. What this does is it opens up a VS Code, which is my text editor, of our new project named Stripe Checkout Demo, which is a basic application of a Next.js project. So as you can see here, we have an app directory and not a source directory. That's the first major change here. We already have Tailwind and all that installed onto our project. So if we go inside the app directory, the first thing is that the front end and back end are all done inside of the app directory. So the back end you want to keep clean and coded, clean and organized. You're going to put all that inside the API folder, but you don't have to. So right off the bat, they give you an example endpoint route called API/hello. So it'll be localhost/API/hello. And then the route, which is like the handler where we actually do the GET request or POST request, is done inside of a route file. So that is the syntax for that. And our home page is the page.js. And this is just going to be the default homepage that Next.js does. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So we're going to open up the terminal and we're going to run npm run dev. This is going to run the development server. And it's going to open up on a new Google Chrome file. And as you will see here, after it loads, it is going to load. And this is what the default homepage looks like for Next.js and for Cell. So I'm going to minimize this. And we could just remove all that code. We don't need any of it. So we remove that. We're going to type a div. And inside of that div, we could just put homepage. So that's the name of the page. We could remove this import of image. So there's our home page, which is the page file inside of the root layout of app. So we also have a layout file, which is technically our root layout. And this is going to apply to all the pages. So as you can see right now, they're applying a Google font called Enter to all the body of our whole application by calling enter.classname to all the children. So this file allows you to actually use nav bars and footers and certain button layouts that you want. And you could put them all in here and you could use it inside of your layouts. You could also put layouts inside of other routes. So I'll show you how to do all that later. And then we also have the metadata, which is right here, which you don't have to worry about for this project, but this is for Google SEO purposes. So we're going to go inside the global CSS. We're going to remove everything from line 5 to 27. And we're going to keep lines 1 through 3 because that's for Tailwind. And that's just going to clean up our CSS a little better. And the next thing I want to do is I actually do want to create a pricing page for the front end. So we're going to go inside the app and then we're going to create a new folder called pricing. So this is actually the route that we're going to do. So it's localhost 3000/pricing. And each route needs a page.jsx associated with it. So we could just do RAFCE. We can name this pricing. We're going to just export it as pricing. And this is where we're going to have our pricing page. So before we actually get into any code, let me show you just quickly what I've done. We have the home page here. As you can see, it says home page. And if I go to /pricing, it just says page, which that's what our code says. So that route works for the front end. We just go back to the home page, and that's it that we've done so far. The next step I want to do before coding anything is I want to go to stripe.com. So if you don't have a Stripe account, you can create one real quick. Just follow everything it tells you to do. And then when you get in the Stripe dashboard, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. You will see that you have a test mode and a developers. So we're going to go inside the developers and we're going to have test mode. So there's a few spots that we're going to use that I'm just going to mention real quick. First is in the developers, you have an overview and then you have API keys. So Stripe gives you 2 API keys. One is a publishable key and the other is the secret key. The only thing we're going to use of these keys in this project is the secret key. And hence the name. You should not let anybody else know about your key because then people could actually hack your Stripe and make it seem like you're charging them, but it's actually a hacker. So just make sure you keep this key secret, and this key is going to be in your .env file for this project. But I'm not going to reveal the test key now, but we're just going to keep this as is. But the first place we're going to go and start working on in stripe.com is the products. So the products tab up here, we're going to click this. And I already have 4 products. So from that example I showed you at the beginning of the video, these are those products in each of the pricing cards. So we're going to create all the products inside of Stripe. You can actually create the products inside of your application in VS Code, but we're just going to do it here because I feel like it's a lot easier. All you have to do to create a product is add product here at the top right. Let me confirm my password real quick. Okay. So these are the product details you have to fill out. So you just have to give it a name, a description, the pricing model. We're going to use standard pricing, the price, if it's a reoccurring or one-time checkout. You could see additional options, which are different metadata, and unit labels and features lists and all that. You could just go through that, but I'm going to show you exactly what I did for each of the products we've done. So for this 15-yard dumpster 3-day rental, we are going to go into the edit. And as you can see, I gave it a name, a description. I left the product text category as is. I didn't do any additional options here. If you go to the price information, I left it as standard pricing. I gave it a price with the one-time occurrence. And then I just gave it a price description of 15-yard dumpster. And then you go up to the right and click Save Product. So I've already made the 4 products here that we need for this project. So how do we get these products onto our application? And that is through a GET request. So we're going to have to send a GET request to actually receive the products we need into our application. So I am just going to stop the server real quick. And there's going to be 2 packages we need. We need first package is Stripe, so npm install Stripe, and then we're going to use Axios. If you don't want to use Axios, you can use Fetch, but we can use Axios as well. So we're going to install those 2 packages real quick. If you want to make sure those packages were installed correctly, just go to your package.json, and these are my versions that I'm using for this project. So we could close that. And the next step we're going to do is we're actually going to create the backend endpoint for this GET request. So for this backend GET request, the front end and backend kind of works similarly. So when we're in the API folder, the route is going to be whatever the folder's name is. So inside of API, we could create another folder, and we will call this one GET products. So GET products is going to be the route. So it's going to be localhost 3000 /API /GET products. And inside of each route for a backend, we need a route file. And then for the front end, you need a page file. So this is going to be a route.js. And we're going to have 2 imports. We're going to import Stripe with the capital S. And then we're also going to import Next response. And Next response is specific to Next.js only. And this allows us to be able to send JSON data to our front end. So that has to be imported right here in our backend. We are going to create an asynchronous function. And this function is a little different compared to version 12 of Next.js. You're just going to call whatever the endpoint request is. So this is going to be a GET request. So you say GET. If it's post, you put post instead of handler. It used to be handler back in the other version. So we're going to pass the request in here as a parameter. And then inside of the code block, first thing we need to do is we need to initialize Stripe. And to initialize Stripe, you need to use that secret key that I was talking about earlier. So this is going to be the syntax of how it looks. So we're just creating a variable called Stripe, and this is going to initialize it. But to initialize it, we use Stripe, and then we pass in that string. But to pass in that string, we are going to pass it in a new file called .env. We will name it Stripe _secret _key. This is going to equal that secret key. We go back into our dashboard, go to the home, developers, API keys. You're going to copy this key and then put it in that env file. So let me pause my video and do that real quick. Okay, so now we're back. After you copy and paste your secret key into the env file, make sure you do it without a string. So you don't need any of the quotations. You could just copy and paste it as is. Next, to access that env specific file, we are going to say process.env. Whatever you named it. I named it Stripe secret _key. So now we just initialize Stripe inside of this GET request. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to create a variable called prices. This prices, we're going to have to await. And then Stripe gives you different methods since we did download it. So to see the methods it gives you, just type in Stripe dot And then you can see the list of different messages. So we have like checkout, charges, billing portal, all that. But we're going to use prices, dot, and then we're going to list. So we're going to list all the prices, and we're going to pass an object parameter, and we're just going to pass one saying limit. So this is just going to limit the number of different product prices we're going to pass, and I'm going to keep it at 4 since that's how much we have. Other than that, next we just have to return the JSON now. So to return the JSON, you just put next response dot JSON, and it's going to be prices dot data dot reverse. So the data is required, but the reverse isn't. The reverse is just going to reverse the order of the products. So for example, instead of starting with 24-hour special, it's going to start with the 15-yard dumpster and go this way whenever it appears on our application. So now if we go back, data is required and prices.data because it's actually giving you an array with 4 different objects, and each object is the data. So for example, we're going to test this out real quick with Postman to make sure this GET request is working. So we're going to go to postman.com. And first thing is first, we're going to make sure our development server is actually running, which it isn't. So make sure you npm run dev. And if you did make changes to the env file and didn't reset your development server, you probably should. So we're going to open up the localhost 3000. We're going to go to Postman, and we are going to do a GET request to http://localhost 3000, and the API endpoint was /API/get products. So when I click send to get this, we should get a response of 4 different prices. So we're sending for the request, and as you can see, we get an array. Let me move this up. With 4 different objects, which these are 4 different prices properties. So as you can see, each product is associated with the price ID, and that is how we're going to be able to access each product. And you can see the unit amount, the lookup key, when it was created, if it's active, what the object is, its price, and it just gives you a bunch of properties here. So that's how you're going to be able to test your endpoint, which that means our GET request endpoint is actually working. So I'm just going to close Postman here. Here's our localhost 3000. I could close this Next.js, and I'm just going to have Stripe, and I'm going to have Next.js localhost 3000 open. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in our application, and we are going to start working on the actual pricing page. So I'm just going to close up this API folder, and I'm going to go inside the UI of the pricing page, which is the front end of what people see. So for this pricing page, we are going to have, this is where our title is going to be, and then we're going to pass in a component called pricing card, and then that pricing card is what we're going to style to make those pricing cards look like you did at the beginning of the video. So we are going to have in this return, we're going to just wrap everything with a section. And we're going to give this a class name. So this next section is all pretty much going to be TailwindCSS. So if you do want to skip it and just copy the code, you can. But I'm just going to kind of go over everything TailwindCSS to actually style everything out. So to do that, though, I am going to side by side my actual code. And then I'm going to side by side the localhost 3000 so we can see the changes in real time. So we're going to go to the pricing page. I'm going to make this a little bigger. We can remove this, and then we can remove this. So now it's full width. Okay, so our first class name with our parent element, we're going to give it a width of full. And then we are going to create the pricing card section right here. So we're going to have a div inside of here. And this div is going to have a class name of mxauto. Max width of 4XL. We're going to have all the text centered. We have a margin top of 10 and item center. So within that div, we are going to have an H2. And this H2 is going to be our title. We're just going to say pricing. And we're going to give this a class name with a text of 3XL. Font is going to be semi-bold. We're going to have the text leading of 7. And then we're going to give the text a specific color, which means we have to put it in brackets. And this color is going to be that same orange that you saw earlier as well. And if you do have any questions about the Tailwind CSS, you could either look in the docs or leave me a comment below in this video, and I'll be more than happy to get back with you. But the docs are pretty simple for Tailwind CSS. They make it really easy to understand. So we're going to create a paragraph tag underneath with the margin top of 2. We're going to have text 4XL. We're going to have the font as bold, tracking tight. We're going to have text gray of 900. And on small devices and up, we're going to have text of 5XL. And then in this paragraph tag, we are going to name this choose the right dumpster for you. So as you can see, everything's popping up here as we type. The next tab we're going to do another paragraph tag. And then in this paragraph, we could say check out all the information below. And then we're going to style this a little bit, give it a class name. This one is going to have MX of auto, margin top of 6, max width of 2XL. We're going to have the text large. Leading is going to be 8. Text gray 600. And then on small screens and up, we'll have the text center. So there's that, and it looks pretty good for now. Now we're going to have a div right below this div. So this div is covering this H2 and 2P tags. Now we're going to have another div. And inside we are going to style this main div right here. We're going to say grid. Then on small screens, we're going to have a column of 1. And then on small screens and up, which are going to be like your computers and desktops and just bigger tablets, it'll be columns of 2. We'll have a gap of 8 in between each card. And we'll have a max width of 1040 pixels. So it's not going to go more than that, no matter how big the screen is. And then items will be center. And then we'll have MX auto, last property there. So inside of this div, we are going to map through all the prices. So to do that, we need to get that endpoint and actually connect it to our front end right here. So to do that, first thing first, we need to actually add a use client at the top, because all pages on Next.js 13 are server-side rendered by default. So if we do a use client, which is going to be anything with use state, anything that the client kind of has to interact with, it's a use client file. So that's why we have to tag it as this, or you are going to get an error, and it will tell you in the error that you have to use client. So it's not too big of a deal, but we're going to import a few things first. We're going to import Axios from Axios to hook up our back end or our front end. We are also going to import use state and use effect. We're going to do use state so we could have those prices inside of a variable. So set prices and prices. And then we'll do use effect to get those prices every time we land on this page. So right when we land on the slash pricing, we're going to call that get request, and it's going to get all those prices for us. So we are going to create that call function right here. So before we do that, let's do prices and set prices. And that's going to equal the use state. And for that, it's going to be an empty array. So an empty array of prices. That's going to be the initial value. And then we are going to create a variable called fetch prices. Let's do a lowercase f. And this fetch prices is going to be an async function, so asynchronous function. And it's going to be an arrow function, and inside of the code, we are going to destructure the data that we get with the price. So it's pretty much like when we receive the data from Stripe and the products, we get the prices, and then we go down one level to data, and then we're just destructuring all of that data. So we're going to wait, and then we're going to do an axios.get. So we're going to wait the get request, and we have to go to that endpoint, which is /API/get products. And then after we get the products, we are going to set prices to the data. So our prices variable is now going to be the new product. So if you want, you can console log the data. So let's do that real quick. Console.log data. And since it is use client, it should pop up in the console. So let's refresh this. And it's actually not popping up because we haven't called the fetch prices yet. So let's do use effect with an arrow function, and the array dependency is going to be empty, and let's just call that fetch prices so we can actually run that piece of code. So now we called it, and we're going to refresh the page, and if you open this up more, now we get 4. So as you can see here, we get all the prices, all the properties of the price and everything, and now we can actually utilize all this information and show it to our actual customers. So as you can see, we have 4 products, and we do get an array length of 4. So this is every time we refresh on this page. So if I go to my localhost 3000, we're not going to get that because it's not calling the endpoint. So you see in the console, we get nothing. So if we go to /pricing, and you see it, then we get 4. So that's how it looks now. And TailwindCSS is mobile optimized first, and it always adjusts to the screen size. So Tailwind is a really good CSS framework to use. At first, it may look messy in the code, but it's actually worth learning and using, and you do get used to it. So now that we have the prices, like I said down here, inside of this div that we created, we are going to map through the prices. So to do that, we're going to say if there is prices, so if prices is true, then we are going to do prices.map, and then we're going to pass through each price, and then we're going to return a pricing card component, and this is going to be a self-closing tag. We're going to get thrown an error because pricing card is not defined. So to define it, we are just going to go inside of our app directory again. We are going to create a new folder called components. So you can still create the components folder, and then inside the components, we're going to have a pricing card.jsx. We could just do RAFC. It's going to export the pricing card. We could close that real quick. And then we could just import the pricing card inside of our page right here. So as you can see there, we get 4 pricing cards. And if we spread out, you get those columns of 1. And then on mid, small screens and up, you get columns of 2. So that's looking good right there. And then since we were getting the prices here, we want to pass some price information into the pricing card. So to pass the price, we need to send it as a prop down to this component. So we're going to pass price as price, and then we need a key, which is going to be price.id, because that's going to be a unique identifier. And then other than that, we are done with this specific page. So we can close this, we can close this route, and we could close the home page. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to work inside of the pricing card component. So to do this, there's one package I want to install before doing it. So we are going to shut the terminal down real quick by Control C, and we're going to do npm install react-icons. Reason why is because that green check on that pricing card is from React icons. So now we have that available. We're going to just say npm run dev to start the development server again. Wait till it says that the client and server is successful, and then you can just refresh this page to make sure everything's good. Okay, so everything looks good. Now we are inside of this pricing card. So I'm just going to make this full screen just for a sec real quick, and we can work on a few things. So first thing is first, we did pass price into this function, so I want to catch it by destructuring it. So price as a parameter. Next thing I want to do is I want to import a few things. I want to import Axios from Axios because we are going to have to use Axios to connect to our backend for the post request to actually create the Stripe checkout. Another thing I want to import at the top is link, and this is going to be from next/link. And then I'm going to import that check from React icon. So it's going to be AI fill check circle from React icon /AI. Okay, so now let's work on the actual classes again inside below the return. So the top parent element we're going to style real quick. We're going to have a border gray of 100. And let me minimize this so you can start seeing it actually play out in real time. Okay. And as you see, you don't see the word pricing card anymore because it was actually in this component. So you'll start seeing stuff as we start coding it. So let me remove this, and let's start coding. So we're going to have a shadow of 2XL, a border of 4. We're going to have all the text centered. We're going to have a margin top of 10. And we'll have a max width of 1040 pixels. Okay, so inside of that div, we are going to create another div. This div is not going to have any class name whatsoever. We just need this as a box, kind of as a container. I'm going to do another div. And this div is going to cover your title of each pricing card. So as you can see right now, you can see a faint line because you can see the border gray of 100. So for this class right here, let's style this. We're going to have BG gray 100. We're going to have a height of 28. So now you can kind of see the card taking shape. Right there you see the cards. We have the height of 28. We are going to have all the items centered inside of the card, and we want the font to be bold. This will give that bold font to the titles that we're about to do. So we're going to have an H4, and inside of this H4 we need a class name. We're going to have the text as 3XL. And for this, we are going to give this a dynamic value, and this is going to be price.nickname. So that is going to be one of the properties. So as you can see, they popped up. 15-yard dumpster, 20-yard dumpster, 10-yard dumpster, 24-hour special, 15-yard dumpster. So if you're wondering where this nickname comes from, I am going to open this up, go inside the products. Now we're in the products and Stripes dashboard. If you click edit on the products you do, and then you come to the price information, click the additional options, and the price description, this is your price.nickname. So that's what it's going to be. Another way to check what your specific variables are within your price, I'll show you another way you could do it. If you inspect, open up your console log, since we are console logging that GET request, if you open up one of these, you can see all the properties that are related to that specific product. So you see it says nickname. So that's obviously one you could use. You could use price.nickname. You could use price.currency. You could do price.unit_amount.decimal. As you can see, that's how you kind of look at it. So that's why I used price.nickname. So all those are popping up right there. And then we're going to have a p tag. And this p tag, we want the information to be dynamic again. So the only way you could do this is by creating different functions that have specific if, ands, and stuff like that. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, and then I'm just going to copy and paste it. So we're going to have a dynamic function in here. We're going to call this dynamic subtitle, right? And then we're passing in the price, which gives you all of that information I just literally showed you in the console log. So we're going to get an error because we have not defined dynamic subtitle. So to do that, we're going to do this right above the return. And we are going to say const dynamic subtitle. And this is going to equal an arrow function with price passed in as a parameter. And then inside of the code block, this is how we're going to do it. So we're going to say if the price.nickname, right, equals, and then whatever that nickname was. So the first one we could do is 20-yard dumpster. So the price.nickname equals 20-yard dumpster. We are going to return a p tag that says 3-day rental, right? So as you can see here, the 20-yard dumpster price nickname is the only one with 3-day rental. And that is how you kind of do the dynamic. And you just got to do if this, then that, if this, then that, like 4 times. So I am going to copy and paste that code because it's very, very repetitive. So let me copy that real quick, and I'm going to show you exactly how it looks. So as you can see, I copied it right there, and now all 4 of them have different ones. 3-day rental, 3-day rental, weekend special, 3-day rental. So if it's that price nickname, we use that specific p tag. Now we could close this specific line 7 right here to make the code look a little cleaner. Okay. So now the next thing is we need another H3 underneath here. And this H3 is just going to say first 2,000 pounds included. So this information is specific to like dumpster rentals. So if you don't know anything about dumpster rentals, it's not a big deal. But there's that for you. And that's going to be everything that's going to be inside this div. Now we are going to create another div right below this. And this is going to act as a container. We don't need a class name for that. We're going to have another div inside. And then inside of this, we're going to have some style. And in this style, we're going to have a flex dash column, items dash center, justify dash center, and then we'll have a padding top of 4. So this is just going to be the div right underneath all of these titles here. So for example, now we're going to have an H1 inside. So this H1 is going to be the main element that we really want to use inside the card, which is going to be the price. And the price is more than just saying price.price, because that's not going to work. So let's style this real quick. We're going to have text of 5XL, and the font is going to be bold. So inside of this H1, it is going to be dynamic again, because each price is different, so it needs to be dynamic. So we're going to get the price. Let's see. It's going to be in parentheses, because we're going to do price.unit_amount. So that's what the property is if you look at the console log. and then we're going to divide it by 100. Because if you look at it, you need to divide it by 100 to actually get the right number. So as you can see, it says 339, 379, 289, and 299. That is in USD. If you don't do it divided by 100, it's going to look like it's 28,000, 37,000. So it needs to be divided by 100 to actually give you the right number. And then after that, we are going to fix that to a local string, right? And then in the local string, we're going to pass a parameter called NUS because it's going to be in the US dollars, right? And then we need a comma after this, and that payload that we're going to do, which is options. We're going to have a style, and this style is going to be currency. And then a comma, and then the currency is going to be USD, which is US dollar. So as you can see there, everything looks pretty good. I am zoomed in too. So there is 100%, but this is zoomed in at 125%. So that is how it looks. There's the price that is dynamic for each specific dumpster rental. And now right below that, I'm going to have an H3. And this H3 is going to say additional weight just 5 cents. Just 5 cents per pound. And that's going to be underneath each one. So that's going to do it for this specific div here. Underneath that, we are going to have an unordered list. And this is where we're going to do all of the bullet points. So the bullet points that whatever comes with this specific dumpster, you're going to get. So that's also going to be dynamic as well. So we are going to style this unordered list, and that is going to have flex and justify center. And then in an unordered list, you usually have a listed item. And inside of this listed item, let's style it first. We're going to have a class name. The text will be extra large, and the font is going to be bold. And each listed item is going to be dynamic as well. So we could name this one dynamic description. So we name one dynamic subtitle because that was the subtitle. And then this one's going to be dynamic description. We're going to get an arrow thrown because we don't have a dynamic description. So we're going to create that right now. So dynamic description equals the price as a parameter, an arrow function, and then we have a coded block. So inside of the coded block, I'm going to show you an example of what we're going to do. It's almost similar to the subtitle. So what we're going to do is if the price dot nickname equals 20-yard dumpster, right? Then we are going to return, and then you're just going to have a bunch of CSS classes and stuff like that. So I'm just going to copy the first one so you can see how it will look. And this is where we use that React icon of the AI fill check circle. So if I paste this in here, this is what it creates right here. So it has a little border at the bottom, $25 per day after 3 days. It gives you specific features that are included with that specific price, right? So that is going to be in there like that. So I am just going to pause real quick here. You could pause the screen. You can see the exact class names I use and how I use it. So we have a div that surrounds it all. And then these divs surround the icon and an H2. And then you have a specific div right here that's a self-closing tab that acts as the border, the gray border. So we're going to do that for each of the dynamic descriptions. So I'm just going to copy and paste that code real quick because it is a lot. So let me do that real quick. And as you can see, we have it for all four now. And I am just going to close this so the code looks cleaner, but you can see that's line 19 through 179. So that's a lot of code right there. So let's go back down and let's finish this card real quick, the CSS of it. So right underneath that, we are going to have underneath the UL, we're going to have a button. So this button is going to have an on click, and the on click is going to handle the subscription. So for now, we could just do an on click, an anonymous function with a closed code block so we don't get any errors. We're going to have to create a handle subscription, which is going to connect us to a post API endpoint. But let's also style this button real quick. So we're going to have a class name, margin top of 8. We're going to have flex. Width is going to be full. Justify center. Rounded MD. We're going to have a border transparent, a BG of that specific orange that I've been using. So let me copy that real quick. We are going to have a padding top and bottom of 2. We'll have padding left and right of 4. The text will be small. And the font will be medium. So yeah, the font's going to be medium. The text will be white. And the shadow will be small. So right now the button looks like squished. The reason why is because there's no text in it. So let's just add text in it, and the text we could say is, you could either make it dynamic and keep doing it the way we've been doing, or you could just say rent this dumpster. So as you can see there, there's the buttons, and there is your cards. So your cards are looking pretty good right now. So that is exactly how you style the cards. So if you wanted to skip that section, you could, but I will put the code in a repository, and you guys could just copy the CSS if you need to. But that is going to be how you style the cards. Okay, so after the cards have been styled, we are going to do pretty much the most important part of this whole tutorial, which is create the post request. So I'm just going to open up my code because you're not going to see any changes on the front end. We are going to open up our folder structure. We are just going to close folders that we don't need. And we are going to create a backend API endpoint with the post request. So we need to create another folder inside of API, and we're going to name this one payment, because this is how we are going to actually accept the payment. So inside the payment, we need a file called route.jsx. And inside of this route.jsx, we need to import 2 things. We need to import Stripe from Stripe. And then we also need to import Next response and Next request, because we're not just using a request, we're using a response and request for this specific API endpoint. So to do this, we're going to export an asynchronous function, and this function is going to be a post request. So we're going to pass the request into here. And inside of the code block, first thing is first, let's initialize Stripe by saying new Stripe, and then passing in that secret key, which is in our environment variable. So Stripe underscore secret underscore key. Okay. Next thing we are going to do is, before we start doing any of this, we don't actually have any information to keep continuing. So we actually need to start with the front end code. So to do that, it is going to be inside of our pricing card. So inside of our pricing card is where we're going to connect that API endpoint to our backend. So we can do this right above the return, and we are going to call this handle subscription. So this handle subscription is going to be fired off when that button is clicked where it says rent this dumpster. And this handle subscription is actually going to be asynchronous, and we could pass the event in it, because the reason why is because we want to do prevent default, and we don't want the page to reload on us. So that's the very first thing we should do. Next thing is we want to have a destructure of the data. And then the structure, we want to actually assign it to await axios.post. And then we want to connect to the endpoint we just created, which is /API/payment. Okay. And then after that, we're going to have a comma. And then I'm going to press enter again. We are going to have an object. And inside of this object, we are going to define price ID. So price ID is going to equal that price.id. And like I said, you can find this in the console when you run that GET request. So we're going to have price ID equal to the price ID. And then also, we need to pass in a few headers. So these headers, it's going to be an application JSON type, right? So this is pretty basic post request that we're just using in Next.js. So application/JSON. And then we can have another comma. And then one of the biggest misshapes I did that I was stuck on this code for the longest time, that you're not going to be stuck on it now, is I had this when I wanted to open up that pre-built Stripe page. I had it as window.open. And window.open only worked in the development server and on my computer personally. But on any other device, it wouldn't work. So this is what you need to type. You need to type in window.location.assign. And then it's going to open up that data. And that data is going to be that Stripe checkout that we actually define inside of this post request route right here. So that is it for this front end. We are sending the data and price ID to this payment API. So inside of this payment API right here, we're going to let data equal await request.json. So it is a little different here. It's usually request.body. But instead, for Next.js 13, it's request.json. You don't have to do the request.body. So after we let the data equal that, we are going to let price ID equal data dot price ID. Reason why is because the data equals the request.json, and the request.json is going to be this right here, the price ID. So then the price ID is going to equal the data.price ID. So we're just initializing a few variables here real quick. You can console log this to make sure everything's working, but we are just going to go into now what Stripe gives us as a method. So the method Stripe gives us is we have to create a session. So this session is going to be the Stripe checkout session. So that is going to open up that pre-built Stripe page you saw at the beginning. So we're going to call this session, and we're going to wait stripe.checkout.sessions.create. And then we're going to pass an object. So this code is all inside of the Stripe docs. So let me open that up real quick. And the only reason why I know this is because that's how you learn how to do it. Stripe checkout docs. So the Stripe docs are pretty good, but you can get confused pretty easy. So if we go to products and pricing up here, or maybe invoicing, payment methods, payments, accept online payments. And as you can see here, it is pretty hard to see, But you can see right here, it's doing an app post request to this specific endpoint. It's taking the request response and it's creating a session just like we did. And we're awaiting the stripe.checkout.sessions.create. And we have to define a few parameters inside of it. And the main one is line items. So we need line items. We need mode. We need a success URL, a cancel URL, and we don't need the automatic tags. So if you want to do that, you can. But here are the documents. You can go through them if you want, or you can just watch the video. So after we do this session right here, waste stripe checkout, first thing we're going to do is we're going to do line items. So line underscore items. And this is going to equal an array. And then we're going to have an object inside of that. And the price is going to be the price ID. And then the quantity is only going to be one for each. So anytime you click the button, you're only going to have one quantity. Other than that, you can add custom fields, which I'm not going to do now. All you have to do is go underneath the line items like this. Press custom fields. You do this, you'll have an array, and then you have an object like that, and you could create custom fields, and you could look at the docs for that as well. But we're not going to do that for now. So after we had the line items, we needed the mode. And the mode was going to be payment. And as you can see, let me do that again. You could have payment, setup, or subscription. So payment is the one-time payment, subscription is the other one, and you could do setup, which I've never done, so I'm not even going to talk on it. But we'll just do payment for now. Then you need a success URL and a cancel URL. So for our sake, we are going to keep http:/localhost 3000. We could just do that as a success. And the cancel, we could do the same thing. So whenever you actually run your application in production, you need to change this URL because nobody's going to be able to access it. And you might get errors thrown. Okay, so there's that. And then all we have to do is now we have to return. So inside of the code block, we are going to return a next response .json, and if you look in the docs again for Stripe, it's going to show that you have to return the session.url. So that should be it for the post request, and this post request is talking to the front end through Axios inside of the pricing card. So now we just need to bring this handle subscription down to this on click, and the on click was all the way down here. And we just got to pass handle subscription. So let me minimize this code. Open up that page again. I'm going to refresh it real quick. Inspect. And we are just, the only thing we are getting right now is saying that the P cannot appear as a descendant of P. I think that's because we put two P tags simultaneously together. So if you want to fix that, you can, but that should not affect the code at all. And as you can see, we're still getting that GET request that's working. So we're going to see if this button actually works when you click it. So a moment of truth. So when this gets clicked, yep, the Stripe checkout works. It opens up. And let's just make sure it opens up with the correct one. So as you can see, if I press the back button, it goes to localhost 3000. We have to go to pricing, which is the page. So that was $339. Let's see if this actually opens up at $299. And it does. 24-hour special, 15-hour, $299. So everything looks like is working perfectly fine. Let me just do a quick review of the code, and that should be it for this video. So as you can see here, we created two API endpoints. One was a GET request to get all of the products into our application, and the other was a post request to create that pre-built Stripe checkout page. After we created those two endpoints, we created those pricing cards. So those pricing cards were created using TailwindCSS, and then we mapped through all the prices because we set the prices with use state as prices and set prices. We then use dynamic subtitles and descriptions by using if statements. And then as you can see here, here is the code for the post request. And that is the handle subscription. So when you click the button, this handle subscription function fires. It's taking data as a destructuring, and it's sending it to the await Axios post /API /payment endpoint. Before it sends it, it's going to send the data.price ID is going to equal the price.id. It's telling the type it's going to be sent over, and the window.location.sign, that's going to open up this data which gets sent back from this payment. And all of the docs are in Stripe, and you can look up the docs in Next.js 13. And I'm also going to include the code in the description down below. So hopefully you guys learned a lot from this video. It was longer than expected, but I just wanted to make sure I covered everything, even to the point of styling the pricing cards. I know this application created is a very, very useful application that a lot of you are going to get a lot of use out of. I mean, you see this on a lot of pages. So, I mean, this is golden right here. So hopefully you learned a lot from this video. If anything, before we leave, hit that like button and also subscribe for more content like this. And thanks for watching. And if you have any questions on the code or you get stuck on a specific problem, just send me a message in the comments and I will be happy to get back with you within 24 hours, hopefully. Other than that, just happy coding.